speaking with the crew living and working aboard Orion for the Artemis 2 mission. We are now 1 day, 20 hours, and 17 minutes mission elapsed time for Artemis 2. That was the conclusion of the daily planning conference. However, if you listen to the start of that conference, you did hear the relay to the crew that we hope to have the cameras on as much as possible throughout this flight day to allow us to share their journey with the world. So we intend to be able to share the crew with you as much as we possibly can. They are going to move into some of their other tasks today. Again, you heard them discussing the OTC-1 burn, that's orbital trajectory correction burn, or sorry, outbound trajectory correction burn. And Christina Cook taking the camera to show us a wastewater dump. So you heard Commander Reed Wiseman reporting that they don't necessarily hear those wastewater dumps, but that they do see them. So you're getting a live look outside the windows of the Orion spacecraft as they conduct that wastewater dump.
Integrity, we copy that successful wastewater dump.
At this time, the Orion spacecraft is over 106,000 miles away from Earth, 156,800 miles away from the moon. We are moving along with the crew's day. We intend to see them quite a bit, but we are going to not have views for a very short time as they are going to be speaking with their families. These are timelined opportunities to speak with family members down on the ground, so we do turn off the cameras for their privacy at that time. As we were discussing the outbound trajectory correction 1 burn, it was timelined for 5:49 p.m. Central Time, exactly 23 hours after yesterday's translunar injection burn.
Integrity, we are all configured for the family conference. You are go to deroute the live stream video, and we'll see you after the conference.
As we mentioned, the crew is getting into their private family conferences, so we are not going to having views inside the cabin at this time, but a pretty good view from one of those solar array wings looking at the moon, again about 156,800 miles away from the spacecraft. Lunar Flyby Day will be flight day 6, and our live continuous coverage will be showing you all the views we possibly can of the lunar surface and the crew as they perform that work. But again, that outbound trajectory correction 1 burn, it is exactly as it sounds. It's to help the crew maintain course for their flight around the moon, and it is a follow-up to the translunar injection burn that occurred yesterday. That would only be an 8-second burn today, so as you heard Capcom Chris Birch call to the crew, it may not even be necessary because our trajectory is so spot on. This is Artemis Mission Control. We are getting live views from the Orion spacecraft looking at the moon, the destination of the 4 astronauts living and working aboard the spacecraft. Again, the crew woke up at about 12 p.m. Central Time today. They entered their post-sleep period, conducted their cabin configurations and hygiene before moving into the daily planning conference, which just wrapped up about 10 minutes ago. We do intend to see great views of the crew throughout the day while working aboard Orion. However, one of the crew members is enjoying a daily family conference right now. So while they are speaking with their family, we do appreciate the opportunity to give them some privacy, and you are getting this great view of the moon, currently 156,440 miles away.
Houston integrity question on grab sample container.
Christina, ready for your question.
Thank you. Do you need me to use a specific serial number or just either?
Either is fine. Thanks for checking.
Copy, thank you.
This is Artemis Mission Control. I am NASA PAO Leah Cheshire, joined here by Canadian Space Agency astronaut, Artemis II backup crew member, and a Capcom, Jenny Givens. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So I would love to know a little bit about your experience as a Canadian Space Agency astronaut. What has that journey been like for you?
It has been overwhelmingly positive. I mean, I feel very lucky to be in the role that I'm in, but it's just really the honor of my life to work missions like this. Like seeing one of my very dear Canadian colleagues and my other dear friends in space has been pretty phenomenal. So the past few days have been exceptional, but also just to be embedded here at NASA as a Canadian astronaut. We have an excellent partnership and we're boots on the ground here at NASA. And I see every day really the results of what you get when you have a shared mission and you work together. And we just have a really bright future. I feel very positive about being here.
I agree. It's very exciting. So you've been training as an Artemis II backup crew member alongside the crew very closely. Can you tell us what that's been like?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a long road. So backup crew members, we're kind of in an interesting spot because we do all of the crew training, and it's a very developmental mission. It's very nascent, so we're still learning. We do a lot of developmental work and contribution. Right there alongside with the crew, there were 6 of us assigned to this mission, and 4 of us are up there now. So that's a joy to see. And as we approach the mission, my work really transitioned to support. So what can I do to get these guys safely off the ground? Andre and I both worked as astronaut support people. You saw Dre strap our crew into the capsule, which was very cool. And now I have the pleasure of sitting the Capcom console. So supporting them with my training and knowing what they know. And I have a lot of joy every day I see them up there. So it's been great.
Fantastic. And you mentioned the Capcom console, so you are going to be our Capcom, our capsule communicator during lunar flyby. Aside from participating in sims, the simulations alongside where the crew is in the simulator, we're here in Mission Control Houston. How else have you been preparing for that monumental day?
I have had the pleasure of working very, very closely with our science console. So for Flyby, we'll have Kelsey Young in there. She is a phenomenal geologist, along with many of our other science support people, and they really have been training us about how to observe the moon in a way that's accurate and helpful, but also just beautiful. Like imagine what these crew are going to see. I just can't wait for that shift, like talking to them as they approach the flyby, fly so far away from our Earth, look back and observe both the moon and observe our own Earth. It's just an honor to share that milestone with them. So a lot of crew training, a lot of work with the geologists, which also has been a joy, and my own preparations about how I just want to share this with the world. I want people to be really proud when they see our crew do this and see themselves in the words that they share.
We are so excited. I am counting down the hours. In fact, we are 3 days, 3 hours, and 49 minutes into the beginning of lunar flyby. And so talking about your Capcom experience, you were the lead Capcom for Expedition 63 aboard the International Space Station. So how did that help prepare you for this, and what are some similarities and differences?
Absolutely. Well, flying the ISS is obviously, you have a lot of the same roles here in Mission Control, but it's very different. This is a very small ship. We have our crew totally plugged into what's happening all the time, a very defined mission and a much shorter mission. So I would say it's much busier. But our ISS training has really equipped us well. So like the relationships that I formed on that increment, I am seeing a lot of those flight controllers in the room with me for TLI. We had the same INCO or like comms controller here, that was a joy. So really relying on the relationships that I formed earlier, that's just paid dividends and has been so positive to see those people shine in their roles. And then you just learn how to talk to your friends in space, and what a cool thing. What a cool thing we get to do. So really we laid the groundwork in a lot of our ISS work for this mission.
Yeah, truly an honor. And so before we wrap up, I know you do need to get back to the Capcom console. Do you have any parting words? Anyone you'd like to give a shout out to here?
Yeah, absolutely. I have to give a shout out to the families. So seeing the resilience that the families of this crew and my own family have shown as we work to go further than we've ever gone before. You guys are amazing and the unsung heroes of this mission. And I just had the pleasure of being with a few family members during the launch, and it was beautiful. We had a few words, many smiles, many tears, and it was just a joy to see these people experience their crew members achieve their dream. I will truly remember it forever, and I am so proud of you.
It's beautiful. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you for bringing this mission to the world as well. And we are counting down the hours to lunar flyby, but for today, focused on Flight Day 3 and all that the crew has to bring to us. So thank you again.
I love it. Let's do it. Thank you.
Houston Integrity, we had a great PFC on board, and we are ready for the burn conference.
Copy Integrity, great timing. We just finished our discussion about OTC-1. And with such a low magnitude OTC-1 and with a low magnitude OTC-2 with a no perform of OTC-1, we are not going to perform OTC-1. Ground is going to proceed through the OpNav calibrations, and then ground will cancel the burn at MET 1 day, 21 hours, 50 minutes after the OpNav pass. How copy?
We copy snow day, and understand the time is about an hour and 10 minutes from now when you're going to cancel. That was something like 21:50.
That's it, firm.
Great. Would you like us to follow along or do any steps before then?
No crew action or monitoring required today.
Okay, we will take the time to get this cabin looking good, and I think you can come back on board in the HHP camera.
Sounds great. And Christina, thank you. We'll take you up on it, and we'll be coming on board.
This is Artemis Mission Control, 1 day, 20 hours, and 43 minutes mission elapsed time into the first flight of humans aboard the Orion spacecraft, NASA's Artemis II mission. As you heard that call from the ground to the crew living and working aboard Orion, we will not be executing the outbound trajectory correction burn today. The burn was so small and our trajectory is so precise after the translunar injection burn yesterday at 6:49 p.m. Central Time, there is simply not a need for that OTC-1 burn today. We were targeting 5:49 p.m. Central this afternoon for that burn, but as you heard from the ground, they will be the ones sending that cancellation, and therefore the crew will not need to take an action, and as Christina Cook calls it, have a snow day. This is a live view outside the Orion spacecraft looking at the moon, 155,860 miles away. We are about 10 minutes away from a mission briefing here at Johnson Space Center in Houston, not with the astronauts, but instead with NASA leadership. If you are watching on the NASA
integrity timeline.
Go ahead.
Hey, Chris. Reed is complete with his EMER mask deploy for the spare mask. And we have a question about the PCD-4 when convenient. I'd also be ready to do the trash mini conference when convenient. And before we act on either of those, Reed has something for you regarding his PWD activity.
Copy all. We're ready.
For the PWD video, do you want that on an iPhone, on an HHP camera, or just whatever? Or are you going to download that later? You're not looking to download it today?
Reed, we are not planning to download that video during the mission, so dealer's choice.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
That was Commander Reed Wiseman calling down about a timelined activity for the crew today. The PWD stands for Portable Water Dispenser. And the potable water dispenser is what the crew uses to fill drink and food bags. So the request from the ground and timelined on the astronaut schedule for today is to take a video using that potable water dispenser while filling up a drink bag, filling up a rehydratable food bag. Again, this is a test flight, and so we are experiencing everything for the first time with humans living aboard Orion. So this video will be reviewed by the teams on the ground after the mission. Again, we are about 7 minutes away from a news conference here at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. And if you're watching this live stream on NASA's YouTube, you won't need to go anywhere to tune into that news conference. However, if you want to continue watching this mission coverage, we do have a second stream of views available on NASA's YouTube. So you can just back out of this stream, click on that other one, and we will continue providing views of the crew and commentary here in Artemis Mission Control.
Integrity, Houston, just let us know, Christina, when you are ready for PCD-4 talk and the mini trash conference. We'll just be here standing by.
And I'm ready, Chris. Go ahead.
All right, Christina, this might be a...
And Houston Integrity, let me know if you'd like me to go ahead and start with what I've got based on the question from the flight message, flight day message. I can just get started, and then we can generate some back and forth after that.
Yeah, Christina, we will take what you got first.
All right, thanks. Well, first of all, as you might imagine, there's kind of an inrush of trash when we first get up here as we're deploying everything. So we did generate quite a bit of trash in the first 30 hours of the flight. We've been managing that by kind of finding hidey holes for it and putting some of it back into empty locations. The majority of it is in official Orion trash bags. However, some of the packing material was just packed back into some of the Ziplocs that were part of the unpackaging process. So one question we have is, our understanding is that we were basically free to put trash into open locations in CTBs as it was generated, and that the hope or priority would be locations in the D and E lockers. We haven't really opened up much space in CTBs there, like there aren't any fully empty CTBs to start packing with trash. So our ask is, do you have a recommendation for where we should start prioritizing putting the Orion trash bags as we generate them, and potentially a request to consolidate some stowage so that we can designate a CTB that's all for trash?
All right, Christina, we were just talking a little bit here. We do have a location, a desired location for this trash, and recognize I'm directing you towards a place we said we haven't deployed much already, but we have some items for you to take out. The location will be Locker D, Bag 1, Yellow Label. We'll pull out a couple of items. I'll get those to you shortly, but that should alleviate enough space to put about 3 trash bags in that location.
That sounds great, and that will cover the loose trash that we have right now on board. We have about 4 bags altogether, and we found a home for one of them.
Christina, that sounds good.
And I have a couple comments about the uphill garment trash that we have when you're ready.
Yeah, Christina, sounds good. We'll take that uphill garment trash info, and also would be looking for the location of that 4th trash bag, just so we know where to restow things.
Okay, perfect. The uphill garments, so the comfort garments, we put into the Flight Day 1 clothing bags. So we basically just swapped the locations as we changed into our Flight Day 1 clothing, and we restowed it into the locker that they came out of. Additionally, into that locker, we have our mag trash. It is currently double Ziploc bagged, but it is not in an Orion trash bag. And we'd prefer to keep it that way because we have all 4 single Ziplocked mags with their odor absorption sheets in one big Ziploc, so the 4 of them together would not fit in an Orion trash bag.
Christina, we copy that location and that request. We're going to assess and let you know if anything needs to change.
Awesome, thanks. I don't know off the top of my head the location of the 4th trash bag, but as I'm putting away the others, I'll come across it and I'll update you with that.
Copy, sounds good.
Another question when you're ready.
Go.
For all of the packing material, this would include clamshells, bubble wrap, Ziplocs, and regular Ziplocs. We basically feel like our training was that we didn't necessarily need to keep the regular Ziplocs, but that it would be good to keep clamshells or any designated unique Ziplocs that are padded for restow. So wanted to double check this understanding and get any guidance if we should do it differently. But again, what we're doing is keeping clamshells, keeping any unique bubble wrap Ziplocs. We're keeping them with
Apologies to interrupt the crew aboard the Orion spacecraft, but if you are watching on NASA's YouTube, stay tuned. We are expecting our news conference to begin momentarily.
The Artemis 2 mission is a test mission of the Orion space capsule.
Artemis 2 will be the first time we put humans on this rocket.
We're going back to the moon because it's the next step in our journey to Mars.
We were always going to the moon.
Pushing ourselves to explore is just core to who we are. That's a part of being a human.
And liftoff. We shall return.
Continuing to test out every bit of Orion.
Coming back to Earth, 7 miles a second.
When humanity sets big goals, we can bring together genius from around the world.
You have the best people on planet Earth putting this vehicle together.
That's what's up.
To innovate for the benefit of humanity and to inspire the world through discovery.
And here we go.
Good afternoon and welcome to NASA's Johnson Space Center for our Artemis mission status update. We are joined today by Lakeisha Hawkins, Deputy Director for NASA's Artemis program, Judd Freeling, Artemis 2 Flight Director, and Howard Hugh, Orion Program Manager. We'll be taking questions from here in the room and through our phone bridge, but before we kick that off, we will go ahead and start with opening remarks. Lakeisha, go ahead.
Thank you, and welcome to the third day of Artemis 2. We appreciate the continued interest from around the world in the mission and in our crew. Since yesterday's translunar injection burn to send the crew around the moon, the mission continues to perform well overall, and the crew is in great spirits. Currently, the crew is more than 100,000 miles from the Earth and about 150,000 miles to go away from the moon. Victor said that we call amazing things that humans do moonshots for a reason. And indeed, this is literally and symbolically our moonshot that we're in the middle of. It's great to get some very clear video and images of the crew yesterday, and the crew configured their cameras aboard Integrity, and we have some of the latest images to share with you. If you could call up the first image. This first one we got to the ground shows the unique vantage point of the crew as they look back at the Earth. It shows a backlit Earth revealing auroras as the crew heads towards the moon. It was taken by Reed Wiseman out of an Orion window, and it features 2 auroras, top right and left and bottom left, and zodiacal light, which is at the bottom right. It's visible as the Earth eclipses to sun. You know, it's great to think that with the exception of our four friends, all of us are represented in this image. You could call up the next image, please. This one shows Earth as you can see, the Terminator line. And Reed also took this photo after translunar injection burn yesterday. What an amazing shot that he shared with us here. So we continue to learn all about our spacecraft as we operated in deep space with crew for the first time. And it's important to remind ourselves of that as we learn a little bit more day by day. So Judd, if you could talk a little bit more about details.
All right, thanks, Lakeisha. Let's see, so when we last left yesterday after the translunar injection, the crew did some press conferences with media. They did a detailed inspection of their windows. They also had planned medical conferences, and while they were sleeping, the ground did some looking at the crew module and service module, a survey to just see how the vehicle is doing from an external view. We also continued some OpComm passes, so the optical comm antenna that we have on board to downlink high-rate images. We were able to do that overnight. This morning when the crew woke up, they had their normal planning conferences, and then they were able to do their family conferences, so they were to talk to their family. And they also did another noise characterization of how loud the toilet was. So they performed that. We had planned today a trajectory correction burn for OTC-1 is what it's called, orbital trajectory correction. The systems are doing so well, navigation and propulsion systems together, that was not needed, so we'll roll that in to the next planned trajectory correction tomorrow. And I'll hand it over to Howard to talk any specifics on the Orion systems.
Thanks, Judd. Great to be here again. Let's see, our subsystems continue to perform very well. Everything is nominal and as expected, so really good to report that today to you. As Judd said, we did the translunar injection yesterday, and we get a chance to look at the data, and the propellant usage was within 5% of our predicted usage limits. So it was really good to see it go so well, and the performance for that 5 minutes, 50 seconds was outstanding. Let's see, across other subsystems, no issues relative to solar array and power generation. The air revitalization system is doing very well. We are scrubbing CO2 at very good, healthy levels. We're keeping the humidity in the right range. And the crew, obviously you've seen, looks like they're enjoying their time in the cabin. And across various other subsystems, like I said, that's maybe something you heard on the loop relative to what we need to do to isolate this particular branch. The second branch is ready to go. And when I say no mission impacts, we're able to perform the rest of the burns across the mission without doing any regulation, what we call blowdown mode. In other words, there's enough helium pressure in the tanks itself that we can push out the oxidizer and the fuel without needing to regulate or require more helium from the helium tanks. So overall, our redundant capabilities are providing the coverage that we need as we move across the mission. Let's see. Yesterday also, I think somebody asked this question, but the crew was able to exercise. And I said yesterday, I think we talked a little about any performance implications on the guidance navigation control system and talked to our experts, and there were no implications on that. So performed as expected in terms of what we thought the forces that would get imparted when the crew does the flywheel, that we addressed that very clearly through our design. and I'm happy to see that performance held up very well. Let's see, I have, I guess, my own couple images that Lakeisha showed you some, and I have a couple of my favorites. So the first one is just awesome to see from our spaceship. Out the window, our beautiful home planet, the Earth. I believe Reed took this picture, and it just brings a lot of great emotion to me, and to see that picture being taken. I know there's a lot of other pictures that we're going to see that are just going to be outstanding and fantastic to be able to enjoy. And then the second one, I had not seen the crew in a while. I've obviously heard them, but to see them in the interview, I do believe that I think Jeremy is too comfortable that way. I'm not sure he's working that hard, so I'm going to have to check to see if he's doing anything more than just laying there on the side here. But great to see the crew, great to see their smiling faces, and hear them talk about their experience already so far. And I can't wait to talk to them when they land home back Earth. And I think that's it for me today.
All right, thank you. We will go ahead and start our Q&A session. If you're in the room, please raise your hand if you have any questions. And if you're on our phone bridge, please press *1. We'll start right here with Mark in the back.
Hey, hello everyone. Good to see you all again. Mark Strassman with CBS. John, I want to ask you a question, if it's okay. You know, there are millions of Americans, unlike people in this room, who are just catching up with the fact that there's a moonshot going on this week. Who knew? So I want to just sort of scoot ahead to Monday's milestone, the lunar flyby. Why does it matter? What do you hope to get out of it?
So it matters because, you know, the whole point is to go back to the moon. The whole point of this mission is a campaign to get back to the moon. And the being able to see with human eyes the lunar surface is a huge milestone, right? And that just articulates the point, you know, that we're going back to the moon, we're going to stay there, right? And so this is the first step towards that. We'll obviously build upon that. We'll get eyes on the moon, kind of map it out, and then continue to go back and in force.
Yeah, I think maybe I'll go next. I think for us, I'll just touch or follow on what Judd said, which is the building blocks. You know, we're building a transportation system. And to have a reliable and robust transportation system, you need to test flight the transportation system. And I think that's really important. We've demonstrated on Artemis 1 with uncrewed capability. We've added a very important aspect of it, which is the crewed capability. And that crewed capability enables us to really understand how, when we have people in the cabin, how the systems operate and adjustments we need to make. You hear a lot of these kinds of things that over the loop, you know, minor adjustments we need to do. Certainly engineering expertise and the design we put in has a certain understanding, but until you put people in the mix and you operate it and really understand what you need to do to operate in this kind of environment, you don't get that until you're in that environment. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, part of what we're doing is the technical aspects and what we are learning from taking ourselves around the moon. The other part, obviously, is what you talked about, which is capturing the imagination of people, right? And we have far more engagement than we had hoped to have, and we hope that it will increase as we continue to take further and further steps into this mission.
Okay, we'll take our next question here in the front, and then Eric next.
Hi, Mark Kirkman with NSF. This is probably for both Judd and Howard. I'm very fascinated, we just saw some imagery of the waste dump, and I'm very fascinated with the prediction of needing the correction burns versus what's going to be the reality. I was wondering, because there's so little available material on the subsystems, at least publicly available material. Can you summarize the things other than the waste dump that would affect or perturb the trajectory? What vents off of this vehicle as opposed to what we know from shuttle like fest dumps and stuff like that? And were you surprised that you didn't need this burn? Are tighter in the prediction than is the reality tighter than the prediction was so far?
Yeah, so two parts to that question. First, so the major contributor to dispersions is what we call them, basically unplanned little tiny jets, are the carbon dioxide scrubbers. So they vent overboard, right? Vent the CO2 overboard. And so that's it's supposed to be a non-propulsive vent, but it has some propulsion to it, just like the urine vent has a little bit of propulsion to it. And so that causes minor trajectory deviations. Were we surprised that the orbiter correction or the trajectory correction was a no-burn? No, not at all. I mean, it's well within bounds. What happens really is we have a threshold by which if the required correction is low enough, that means that our fidelity on our lowest thrusting jets, our reaction control system, it's just not worth it, right? And so we'll just build up more errors and fix it on the next trajectory correction burn.
I think it's really good to see that we don't need these minor correction burns. It shows that our navigation performance and our ability to get ranging has been outstanding, and that these venting things, whether it's wastewater or the life support CO2 venting, doesn't cause the disturbances that are greater than what we would expect in terms of our performance. And I believe, I think we might have skipped maybe two. I know we skipped one correction burn on Artemis 1 already. And so it's not unexpected. And so the flight control team gets an opportunity to determine when the Delta V execute that burn or not.
Okay, Eric, go ahead.
Eric Berger, Ars Technica. Yesterday, Howard, you made a comment about you wanted a little more humidity in the capsule, I think during the briefing, which as a Houston resident is always kind of funny to hear. But just now you mentioned that the humidity level was up and good. And maybe you could just talk about sort of the comfort in the cabin. I think there have been some questions about temperature. So kind of what temperature swings and what's the ambient temperature and sort of crew cabin comfort level?
Yeah, I'll let Judd start with the crew cabin temperature, and I can follow up. Why don't we try that?
Yeah, so we had a cabin temperature that was in the mid 70s when we first got on orbit, and then we turned off some of the shell heaters, and the temperature dropped around about 65 degrees or so, and then we understood that the crew was not comfortable at 65 degrees. So we turned some of those shell heaters on. We lowered some cabin fan speeds to try to adjust that, and we've gotten it up into the low 70s, mid 70s right now. And as far as humidity, I think Howard mentioned this yesterday, but the carbon dioxide scrubbers really actually want some a good amount of humidity so that they work effectively.
Yeah, so I'll answer. We've got a lot of different kind of knobs to turn to enable the comfort level or temperature changes. For example, the pressure vessel heaters that Judd's talking about, we can go up to 85 degrees. We're not anywhere close to that yet. So that's one knob, and we have other things where we could slow down the coolant loop speed as well in terms of how we trade the heat or the coolant that's necessary to go in the cabin as well. So a lot of different options are available. And overall, keeping a steady state relative to humidity in the cabin allows us to make sure we get good readings also from the CO2 and the CO2 scrubbing associated with that humidity.
I do want to remind us, though, that this is a part of what we want to do. We want an opportunity to be able to exercise these knobs that Howard is referring to so that we have a good characterization of the system going forward. We understand the capability of the spacecraft and its systems. This is what we want.
Yep.
Okay, we'll take our next question right here.
Thank you, Mark Carreau with Aviation Week in Space Technology. I wanted to refer back to the external survey you did with solar array cameras of the Orion and the service module, just to see if you saw anything initially of concern that would have been damage to the exteriors, or it looks good.
Yeah, I have not personally seen the photos from our survey. I did watch it a little bit on TV as well, but I have not heard anything that we're concerned about, Mark. I think we will continue to go to fine detail and look at the pictures. Our thermal protection system team is doing that right now, and they'll give me a report out tomorrow morning and show me anything that they found relative to any damage. But we don't see anything relative to the back shell panels or anything like that that would cause anything of concern based on a preliminary understanding.
Okay, Jackie, go ahead.
Hi, Jackie Waddles, CNN. Thanks for doing this. Quick question for Judd or Howard. I understand that during the latest communication with crew, they were talking about mopping up some kind of leak with towels. I'm not sure understood exactly what was going on. I'd love some insight there. And then tomorrow, there's a couple of things on the schedule I'd love to hear more about with this manual piloting, test flight test objective, and a selfie moment. I'd love some insight into what's going on there. Thanks so much.
Sure. So mopping up water. So it's not uncommon for whenever they're filling drink bags for a little bit of water to come out. The particular incident I think that the crew was talking about likely was as we were filling the contingency water bags. Whenever we had to fill them, there's a straw and a syringe, and you put a towel around it to make sure water didn't come out. There's also a feature of the potable water dispenser such that when you turn the valve off, it still dribbles out water for a little bit. So those are probably the couple of things that they're talking about. As far as tomorrow's objectives, manual piloting, so we're going to do 2 different modes. It's called 6 DOF and 3 DOF, 6 degrees of freedom and 3 degrees of freedom. It's different thruster modes of how much control that you have in all the axes and translation. So we're just it's another test objective of how the vehicle handles. And selfie, I think that's probably a selfie of the Orion vehicle with the cameras.
Yeah, very similar to what we did on Artemis 1, where we had, I think, the biggest selfie stick in the world and allowed us to take all those beautiful pictures. We were originally intended to have those solar array cameras do the survey that Mark was referring to that we did today. But because we were performing so well that we were able to use one of the arrays as a selfie stick, and so that was terrific.
All right, we'll head to the phone bridge for a few questions. Our first question there is from Joseph Howlett with Scientific American.
Hi, Joseph Howlett here, Scientific American. I'm curious about how the crew is faring on board, how their spirits are. I was surprised that they only got to talk to their family now, and how did those conferences go?
Yeah, so we'll say a little bit about that. They are in great spirits, and they are really excited about the opportunity to be there and what's going on. Obviously, they've been very, very busy the first couple of days, especially leading up to translunar injection. But now that we've gotten through that, that's why there's been an opportunity for them to do things like have a conversation with their families. And in terms of the great things that are going on, they did get awakened this morning with a song called In a Daydream by the Freddie Jones Band. So there's a lot of fun things going on in addition to a lot of hard work.
Okay, our next question on the phone bridge is from Micah Maidenberg with the Wall Street Journal.
Hey, I just had a couple of quick ones for Judd. Judd, I wanted to make sure I understood this lunar science observation period. So during that 6-hour period, that's when Orion's traveling around the far side of the moon for the entire stretch of that, or not? And do you know approximately when on Monday that 6-hour period begins, like in Eastern or Central Time? Thanks so much.
Yes, I can get that for you. As far as what we're doing, it's essentially when we start our closest approach to the moon. It's pretty much the entirety of that day we'll be able to see the moon, and so what we're doing is we're doing visual observations, taking camera shots of the moon and the like. As far as when we start it, it's going to be UTC of around 1830 UTC on the 6th. So